How do you build an offense that defenses can't scout? And how do you build a defense that offenses can't punish? It's not about the playbook, it's about the in between. Because the best coaches don't control every decision, they prepare players to make the right decisions. In fact, your job as a coach is to become increasingly unnecessary. And today, Mike and I will show you how by sharing what we're calling the gray areas of the game, the moments that you can't script or call from the sideline. As coaches, we spend hours preparing our teams, but the game is ultimately decided by the decisions the players make during the action. So, how do we build systems that can't teach just actions, but prepare players to solve problems? Today, we'll explore that from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective. So, we have our player development coach, Mike Carlson, who's a former 10-year pro. He's going to share the gray areas that he experienced as a player on the floor.
And later in the episode, we're going to share 3 things that we believe every player needs to thrive in the gray area: positioning, scanning, and just straight up guts. Being in the right spot, seeing the game before everyone else, and having the confidence to make the right read when there isn't a perfect answer. The teams that develop players who can thrive in the gray areas won't just execute better in games, they'll be game changers. And players that learn to thrive in the gray area, they'll have the best careers and the most success.
Welcome to The Hours. I'm Tyler Costin. This is Mark Cascio, and together we run Savi Coaching. We're on a mission to revolutionize the way the game is taught and played. Each week, we'll break down the stuff that actually moves the needle: practice design, shot selection, defensive principles, player development, you name it, and we'll talk about it.
And before we get going, check right now and see if you're subscribed. If you're not, please hit the button. It's free. It only takes a second, and it helps us continue to share free content and improve the podcast every week. We appreciate you.
Let's get into the episode.
Mike, you played professionally. You played at all different levels. Tell me, as a player's perspective, what are the gray areas of the games that matters most to you?
Well, I think my dad would always say rebounds are free. So that was one of those things where it's just like, if you're not getting involved in the game, you feel like you're not getting touches, like the rebounds are always free. And transition, obviously, you run the floor, you get out in front of everybody else. You can go get an easy one that way. And from a perspective too, in those games where you're struggling, from a player's perspective, I should say, in those games where you're struggling, like all it takes is one play to kind of get back into the rhythm, get back into the flow. And so just identifying like the easy ones, like where you can get those, and then transition, offensive rebounding, making a defensive play, just something that's going to be simple to sort of get yourself back into the mindset of like, okay, I'm not playing the best right now, but I can get back into it and I can help my team.
All right, this is going to be good because I think as you share your experience more from a player's lens, it's going to serve our coaches to be able to better equip their teams to handle those, right? So, like, how do I coach my player? How do I equip my players in those gray areas of the game to be more successful? And you're kind of talking about the unseen things, right? Like maybe something that doesn't require a lot of talent, but like a play that you can make. It's a loose ball. It's like an effort play or rebound that like might just get you back engaged. When I think gray areas, I'm kind of thinking like nuance of the game, maybe something like shot selection. So, what I'm curious to talk through with you is something like, all right, I've got a small advantage layup or a small advantage finish, but you're wide open in the corner for a 3. To me, that's a gray area, right? Do we want like the small advantage 2 that's like 3 feet away from the rim, or do we want the 20-foot shot that's more open? So, we'll dive into some of those as we go through these gray areas. Mike, why don't you lead us off? Like, what gray area did you experience the most as a player? I know you work with players at all levels. You break down their film. That's what you do for us at Savi Coaching. You're doing a phenomenal job of it. So maybe share either your perspective or like pros that you're working with that you're diving into. What gray areas are you seeing right now?
Well, I think, okay, so I played the 4, and I was in the transition of the game to where my position really became irrelevant. Like stretch 4 was just, it was just like you're not that important, right? Like, and it used to be like, no, we need a 4 he can read the game, he can do everything, and like is kind of basically a second point guard from a big position to sort of like, yeah, set some screens and go over there. So the challenge was, okay, how can I still impact the game even though I'm definitely like not supposed to get as many touches as say a handful of years ago. And my whole perspective was like, rebounds, that, but like I can't miss any opportunities to make myself available. So you brought up that one of a guy's driving to the paint, and it's like I have to be there in the corner. I have to be an option for him. And if you want to take it even a step further, as a guy is driving to the basket, he's trying to read the defense. There's, 16 things he's trying to process at the same time: the pickup, the gather, the footwork, the defense, everything. And it's like, is he just going to see me if I'm standing there? And it's like, if you just slide a little bit as he's driving to the basket out of his peripheral, he's way more likely to see you and actually deliver that pass. So it's like those little nuances inside the game to make myself more available more often was how I would get my touches and how I would do that. And then even like if I hit a couple threes, teams knew who I was. They knew what I could do, what I was capable of offensively. So like they would just be like, we can't let him go. And then it became, okay, now I can set really good screens because my guy is just hugging me. And it's like, okay, and I can move a little bit on these screens and I can cheat a little bit and I can get my guys open a little bit more. So those are the sort of like nuanced things where it became less important with me with the basketball actually in my hands to just being a super role player, team player, partly because basketball changed while I was over here. And the other thing was like I got older and my knees didn't work as good.
Yeah. Okay. I want to touch on two things that you said. First, let's talk about like moving in and out of space or making yourself available to the ball. Because every Monday in our membership, I do a mini clip Monday where I just do like a very short clip and I just ask for coaches' feedback. And last Monday was holding the corner. I took a summer league clip, and right when the ball cracked the shell, the player in the corner started lifting. And I wanted to get coach's perspective of like, hey, is this on time? Is this early? What are you teaching? Because I found I've been more on the approach of like, hey, stay locked in the corner. Because I'm not a huge fan of like dribbling in, having someone circling behind me hard, where it's closing my gap. And it takes away a catch and shoot three to me. So I'm probably on the extreme side of holding the corner. But a friend of mine I saw on Twitter, John Carrier, who I believe is a weekly listener. So hello, John, if you're listening. Probably a weird like moment when you hear your name on a podcast. Um, but he said that locking yourself in the corner for too long could put you behind the defense where you're actually blind to the ball. So as a coach, what I teach is through a principle, and the principle is three in a row. So what you don't want is we also refer to this as tic-tac-toe. You don't want it to be ball, defender, Mike, meaning that like defenders right in between us. So yes, the nuance or that gray area would be coach is telling me that I should be in the corner. But if I was in the corner where the X is at practice, the ball actually couldn't see me. So I should start lifting out of the corner, right? And you're making yourself more available to the ball, and you're giving the ball handler an option instead of being blind to them. So the principle that we would encourage coaches, or I would encourage coaches to look at, is instead of like, hey, you have to be in this spot. Yeah, there's some value there of like, hey, let's get to the corner. But as the ball moves, you've got to move in relation to the ball, just like we would tell a defender, right? Like you're always moving in relation to the ball and your man. Same thing offensively, your positioning should be moving in relation to where the ball's moving.
Exactly. And the corner is a great example because in FIBA and in the NBA there's the break, and it's like this is your space. You can be anywhere in here, but like you just need to be down near there
Below the break.
below the break, and you can slide. You get a little bit of leeway, and then it obviously changes. If you got a guy on the wing, and then he needs to be aware of like, oh, there's a guy in the corner. I can't slide as much. So then it's like it just becomes like spatial awareness thing, the communication of like where the bodies are, and you just don't like obviously you don't want two guys standing next to each other because then one guy can defend two. But yeah, so giving players a little bit of leeway, giving them a clear structure of like, hey, like this is your little world right here, and you can do whatever you want in it. And you'll see even like especially in the corner, I teach ninja cuts where you like put yourself so deep in the corner and you just kind of stand there that like your defender has to like move up a little because he feels like he's so close to the baseline, and then you can just kind of sneak behind him as
Yep.
he's paying attention to the ball and kind of forgets about you there. So yeah, there's that's the gray area of the game where it's like maybe you can get a cheap one just by getting a little ninja cut along the baseline.
Yeah, it's a good one. So I would say that gray area is cutting versus clogging, right? If I overcut, if I'm always cutting, I'm probably clogging the paint and I'm closing space. So when do we cut is when we can get behind the defense or just cut to the rim with advantage. Like some of my so I'm not a huge fan of the basket cut just to cut, right? Just for movement. I am a fan of cutting for nines though, right? Like we want to cut for big advantage shots. We call your ninja cut a burn cut. The sticky language we've used or the principle would be if they turn, you burn. So if they turn their head, if they can't see you, that is the trigger to burn. So that would not be a clogging cut. That'd be a cut with an advantage. And another one that is just my favorite. It's just like beautiful basketball because the IQ is really shown there. Is when you get a shot fake and you get the defender out of position or up in the air, and then you give and go it. So you get rid of it and go, or something similar might be like getting into a zoom or a get with a big in that same situation, like off balance defender, give it up, give it right back. Like those are the gray areas of the game. And it's a common question that members have is, all right, so we're not supposed to cut. When do we cut then? And principle, again, we want to teach through principles, not rules, is when you have advantage. So we create space, we attack space, and we pass into space. How do we attack space? Well, it could be like you're talking about, just like holding your spot in the corner or moving up at some point below the break, or on the weak side of the floor against penetration, moving into an open window around the perimeter so the ball can see you. But attacking space could also be with the bounce. It could be with a burn cut, could be with a face cut, could be with a back cut, could be with a post up. So all of those are ways to just like attack space while keeping in mind that we have to keep the rim open sometimes too, right? We don't want to overcut.
And in it, when I coach players through film, there's always a pattern that they do. So it's either one extreme or the other. It's they're cutting like way too much or they never cut. And it's just like, okay, what are your strengths as a player? And it's like, man, like I'm a really good slasher. I'm really good, if I'm near the rim, like I'm getting fouled or I'm getting a bucket. Okay, maybe you should lean towards cutting more or looking for cuts more. And it's like, I'm a really good shooter. I'm not too strong, can't finish around the basket. And it's like, okay, then obviously stay, like, don't cut as much. But it's never, the answer is never, never. Never
Yeah.
cut and never, and
All
always
right.
cut, I guess.
Okay, so let's pretend that that was the answer. Although we all know it's not, right? The game is not in absolutes. In fact, that's the whole podcast is like about the gray area of the game. But put your coaching hat on. You have to coach a team that always cuts or never cuts. Which one are you picking?
Always cuts or never cuts? Well, based on my experience and the guys who would overcut and clog up the paint, they tended to be super aggressive people. I would want to play with those guys. So give me the always cutter, and we're just gonna beat everybody up. That's how it's gonna be ugly, but that's how we're
Okay.
gonna win.
I'm gonna go the other way. Let's just start with spacing. And that's actually how, like, when we install systems, okay, coaches will ask, hey, when do we install this like Clyde cut? If you're not familiar with the Clyde cut, it is where, the wing or the 45 cuts down to the corner and the corner pushes into the dunker spot or maybe fans the bottom. It's like, hey, when do we put that in? My answer is only when you're spacing the floor, right? Like only when your players know when to slide into space or when to hold their space. If not, it's too early, because if they can space the floor, you can install any type of cut or action that you want. If you can't, it's going to be really hard to create advantages. So not that any of us are wrong or right. I actually like that we went different approaches there, because there's certainly something to be said about cutting, but overcutting to me would hurt more than if my dudes were just like standing really well spaced and they knew how to move off the perimeter instead of always cutting inside the shell.
You're not moving though. My guys were
True.
animals in there. We're being some
Yeah.
dogs.
You're probably going to be a better offensive rebounding team than me too, because we're just going to be standing watching on the perimeter.
Exactly. No, I got a question about cutting now that we're on this topic.
Hey, really quick, if you're getting value out of the hours, honestly, you're going to love our school community. In Savvy Basketball, we've got all of our courses in the classroom. We are giving you film feedback on your team. There's community posts with coaches interacting and helping each other. And we take you through challenges to deep dive into different areas of coaching. So come check us out. The link is in the description below. We've got a 7-day free trial. So just come join for free.
Valencia did this a ton this year where they would have a guy in the wing, empty corner, and they would do like a super wide back door, like not deceptive. Not well, it would be deceptive, but it was just pure speed. We're just going to beat you to the spot, and they just had a great pass. They could lob it over the top. There's a ton of passing options, and it was very effective for them. There was a team up in Switzerland who was doing that as well, and it was like ATO kind of thing, or
Mm.
like kind of middle of the game. And they wouldn't run it all the time because as soon as it's run once at that level, they see it and they can pick it up. But like this really wide, quick speed cut with nobody in the corner, just getting the guy going to the basket.
I've never seen that. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it, but I'm sure it's happened, right? But I haven't seen it as like an ATO or a cut that somebody teaches. If I'm picturing it right, is like that player's going down in the wing to the corner and then going around the baseline. Is that what it is?
Let me pull this up real quick. So they would just like float this guy as he's coming off of here for this double drag. And then all this space, he would just make the same exact move.
I love it. Yeah, that's actually a cut that we get inside of our Rose series that we call fan. And every once in a while, we're able to get behind the defense
Yeah.
and get that cut. So if for those that are listening, if you're not familiar with the Rose series, Tyler and I did a two-parter, episode 75 and 76, and we also have our Rose mini course if you want to pick that up. But that's just our main series of how we create advantages in the RDS offense. Is we just open with Rose series, just a series of cuts and actions that create an advantage. Here's another one that I want to get your perspective on, because we talked about the unscripted moments of the game, right? Shot goes up. Technically, if we're on offense, we're in transition defense, but we're kind of still in that offensive rebounding mode. To me, that's a gray area. So curious if you can take this. I'm gonna ask you a coach perspective question, and then you can take this from your player lens. If you were coaching a team, what offensive rebounding / transition defensive system would you use? And I'm phrasing the question that way because I think they should be married, right? We shouldn't like have this transition defensive system and then this offensive rebounding system that's not cohesive with it. So you're coaching a team, shot goes up. What are you telling your players to do?
Everyone crashes.
Love
Everyone.
it.
This
So we're
is
sending.
it's what is working is what is winning. The numbers back it up. Everybody is crashing. Now, within that, there is like you never crash baseline side, because if you crash on the baseline side, you will be like way out of position for transition defense. It's also I want a more aggressive style than what kind of came out of Germany, I believe in like 2016, 17, the tagging up idea, where it was just like we're just going to go right behind our guy and just kind of let them get the ball, but like we're right there to play transition defense. I want to go get the ball. The numbers back it up from the sense that like the amount of easy leak out transition buckets that you will give up during a game do not compare to the amount of extra shots and points that you will generate by doing this way. And then the other benefit of it too is the fact that like if that is your style, now every single drill in practice becomes a rebounding drill automatically, and your team is getting all those reps all the time. It just works on so many levels. Now, to build on this a little bit more, you are going to have some levels of aggressiveness between your players. And you got to let the guys who are going to go and over rebound and just try to get every single ball, you just got to let them turn them loose a little bit. Try to bring in the reins. And then you're going to have guys who aren't going to crash hardly at all. And instead of saying, hey, like, we don't want you to crash, it's like, think of the paint like the dance floor. And it's like, hey, you don't got to go dancing, but like we just want you to hang out. Okay?
Yeah,
We want you to be in the room. Or like we want you
just
to be near it.
just
Okay? You
bob up
don't
and down to the music a little bit.
exactly.
A head
Exactly.
nod.
And with as many threes are going up, as many long rebounds are going up, you're going to get deflections, you're going to make some more plays, and then you can start adding in some different techniques for your more aggressive guys. One that I love is called the Croatian triangle, where I watch a lot of Croatian basketball, and
That
it's just the
sounds that
most.
sounds like a wrestling move.
It is. It's exactly like what you would imagine like a linebacker does, like he's blocking, or not a linebacker, a offensive lineman does to stop somebody from getting to his quarterback. And it's like they do that on every post up, they do that on every rebound, they do that. If I could pull up a game, a Croatian game right now, just a random one from YouTube, And I guarantee within a minute and a half, we would see a Croatian triangle.
Okay, so when you said oh, there's a lot of things I want to touch on, but this Croatian triangle just has my attention. When you say Croatian triangle, I thought you were talking about like three players
No,
like hitting
this,
both elbows in the nail. This is like an individual
this is like
skill
an
that you're
individual, like I am putting both my arms and one leg and I am just pushing you. That's how they
okay.
play post defense over there. It's insane. It's an insane amount of physicality. So I used to bring that back to offensive rebounding. That is how you pin someone under the rim. You win all that space behind you. You just Croatian
Yeah.
triangle 'em. You know what your team scheme is. You know what expected shots are. You know when that thing is going up. Defense doesn't know. So you can win that space behind you, and then go get some rebounds that way. It's tried and true. But yeah, being aggressive, sending everybody, let the most aggressive guys go be the most aggressive guys, and the guys who aren't gonna, get in there and mix it up as much, we still want you hanging out, make some plays.
Yeah. The pin that you talked about, we used to call wedge, like wedge them under. Okay, I love that you're sending all five. I've been a tag proponent here lately. One way that I kind of mitigated that risk is we would go shooter get back, everybody else crash. But so we'd send four on every shot. I like that that was really binary. Like, hey, you shot, go, and we would just get back to half court. And then you didn't shoot, so you should be going. I like all that, but I'm actually full convert of sending all five. And if you're a coach
Even
that's
the
listening,
shooter, even the shooter.
yeah, stay in because you have the best idea of probably where the rebound's going. But also, I love the fact that like, okay, if we get an offensive rebound, we're playing 5-on-5. Then if we're sending two guys back and we get the offensive rebound, we're playing 3-on-5. So sometimes you can't turn that into a good shot or a great shot. Uh, but I also like the aggressiveness that sending five just builds in your team. Like you said, every drill or game becomes a rebounding drill or game, which most coaches talk about how important rebounding is. And if you look at their practice plan, it's not really in there very much, but rebounding is going to happen a lot. There's going to be hundreds of shots a game, right? So here's where my mind goes. If you're a coach listening and you're like, oof, we can't send all five, start sending all five and see if it hurts you. You can always dial it back. But what you can't do is get a month into the season and be like, oh, we just don't crash. Let's just all automatically, let's just all of a sudden be a great offensive rebounding team. I would rather have a team of guys that are willing to put a Croatian triangle on somebody. Let's go, and then we can always say, you know what, Mark, you're like 5'8", you're not going to get a lot of rebounds. Why don't you get back if you need to? But here's the thing I'll say lastly about a coach that's listening, that's considering this. Show me. That's the principle that I'd operate under. Okay, you're going to beat me in transition if we send all five. Show me. If you do, we'll adjust. But if you don't show me, well, then we're tipping the advantage scale in our favor because we're going to get more shots. Another thing, if you don't shoot the ball well, which I've talked to 100 coaches lately that say, we don't really shoot the ball well. Okay, maybe you shoot it 30% from three. Go get 40% of your misses. And automatically, that's like a great pass to the rim. That's a post feed. Now you're shooting dagger threes. Whatever it is, just like chance favors the aggressor. Shout out my guy, Will Wade. Loves that quote, and I do as well. So just be really, really aggressive and then teach your players to bolt in transition defense, sprint, get ahead of the ball. Something that I would implement with my team is like, hey, we're going to crash all five, but we're going to battle to not be the 10th player back. And if you do that, like just sprint to get ahead of the ball. If you're not the 10th player back, then you're going to arrive at least neutral in the half court.
So this is something we haven't talked about, which is like, what is the savvy transition defense philosophy?
So for our left coaches, we start by just having them have transition roles. So we'll identify a wolf that's always getting the ball. We'll identify a wall that's always going back to the wall. So basically it would be like you're transitioning back into a zone. And this is a really good question because this comes up a lot inside of our membership with lock left is some coaches will see it and they say, oh, are we in a 1-3-1 zone? Is lock left a zone? And it's like, well, it can be, but it could also be a matchup zone. It could also be switching man that feels like a zone inside of those roles. But you also don't have to do that. You don't have to establish transition roles. I think it all depends on your team. Like a lot of things, it depends. If you have a really good wolf that's like a Pat Beverly, it's just going to be on the ball and just like be so disruptive. Well, let's get him on the ball as much as possible. And then if we have a really good rim protector, like a Rudy Gobert or something, like you're there, you're protecting the rim, get him on the wall. And then if you have somebody that's really good at sniping passes, like super athletic, like a Giannis or something, then put him as your snipe. So that's been the lock left transition roles that we would ask a coach, or like that we've shared with coaches to start with. But you can use any transition defensive system that you want.
So here, I considered myself a terrible offensive rebounder, like terrible. I was awful, but I was incredible at transition defense because I just had the knack to slow down the outlet. I would wolf for like 0.5 seconds on the
Like a
ball
dribble
to
or
make him
something. Yeah.
turn. And I was able to load to the ball to create a wall to help my guards. And I was able to read it like if I needed to get back and like play safety. And so having taught this to guys, it's really that like you really only have to play defense for about a second and a half right after the other team transitions. So either they get the rebound or if it's a score or if it's hard if it's a turnover obviously or a steal. But like let's just take typical like the big gets the rebound. And it's like if you go for a steal, you're going to get a stupid foul, you know, 90 feet away from the bat. Like you don't need to do that. But if you just like create a little bit of doubt in the big's mind that like, oh, you might get a deflection on this outlet, automatically the other team is just gonna be like, all right, like let's just take our time and like let's just walk it up. And you can like that is it is such a skill. So to like combine that with like we're sending everybody to the glass, and then like as soon as the other team gets the ball, that first second and a half, 2 seconds of like almost fake defense of like, oh yeah, I don't and they'll just stop. It will kill any transition. And then you can find your wolf, find your snipe, get your wall back, all that kind of stuff can happen. But that gray area can like hugely impact the other team because they're just not the other team is like way more scared of turning the ball over in those situations than we need to be of like trying to get a steal like as far as aggressive goes. So it's just like fake it, like just fake
Yeah.
like you're going for the stuff and they'll stop
Yeah. You know what I love about that is when you send all five, you can get to your defense faster. You know, like
immediately.
you get matched up faster. You get pressure on the ball, like you're saying, even if it's like fake pressure, what we'd call like a stun or a skirmish or just cause some type of indecision, right? Even if you cause the big to take an extra pivot before you pass, you're buying a whole second for
It's
your
over.
teammates to get back and get loaded and get
Yep.
matched. So, yeah, it's huge. I mean, that's a great example of the gray area of the game is like we're not pressing, but we're slowing you down because of our presence there.
And nobody will recognize it. Nobody
Yeah.
will notice it that you're doing that to the game. It's the easiest way to manipulate the game of basketball that I've found because it takes just a second and a half of concentration and some, you know, you get better. Like if you treat it like a skill, like you will get better at this and you can do that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I stopped 3 or 4 transition opportunities from the other team. You know, if in a 2 possession game, that's huge.
Yeah. Okay. So this kind of brings me to another gray area here because we're talking about like we're not trapping, we're not pressing, but we're kind of in the mix. We're there. Gray area as a player is depending on your appetite, right? But I would say most coaches want their teams to like follow their defensive rules, right? And defensive principles and not give up advantage. Like the whole goal is to stay out of disadvantage situations, stay out of rotation. So a gray area as a player and one that is like high risk, high reward is like when to gamble on defense. I mean, I'll go first here. Just like the obvious is like if you think you can get it, you better go get it. Like you better run through it hard and not like half-ass it a little bit of like, I'm gonna kind of go for this steal. Like if you go, just run through the ball. But like from your perspective, as a player, coach, you take this anywhere you want. Like what tells you to gamble? When do you gamble?
Well, I wasn't the most athletic guy, so I was fairly conservative as far as a player. Uh, but as far as like taking those chances, it's part I mean, I hate to use the word instinct because it's just like, oh yeah, your basketball instincts, you just know, you just gotta like but part of like that comes from experience and part of the experience to kind of hit what you're getting at is like you need to try to run through some passes. You need to try to do that and fail. And like in those failures, you'll learn what works and what doesn't work. Be like, oh man, I would have had that if. I would have made that play if. That's why film is so important. That's why you go back and there's always in any game you play, any game you go back and watch, there's going to be dozens of what I call zigzag mistakes, which are really just film corrections where you passed when you should have shot, you shot when you should have passed. Oh, if I was one step higher here, I would have been able to get through this thing. And it's just like part of it is frustrating, especially when you fail. But the other part is like treating that as a learning experience. Okay, is there something that I can do better here? Is there something that I can do better here? Like I got pulled out of a game my rookie year for trying to gamble like 3 times. And then I was like I was all frustrated after the game, we lost, whatever. You go back and watch the film and you're like, "No, I kind of deserve to be on the bench." And it's like, "Okay, how can I have an impact for the next time?" And that's where that instinctual, should I be aggressive? Should I not? The falter on the side of being aggressive and see what you can do, see what's capable of, and then go back and just be honest with yourself. Okay, how can I do better next time? And if it's a pattern of corrections that you need to fix, that's something worth paying attention to. If it's a one-off, hey, this is, a zigzag mistake. I should have shot that one. I should have passed that one. But you don't make that mistake like 3 or 4 times. It's just like, hey, just next time be ready to be a basketball player and just falter on the side of being aggressive.
Yeah, and when you talk about like the instinct part, I think another way to look at it would be anticipation. I think anticipation is like such a valuable skill for a team or a player to have, and it all comes down to pattern recognition. It's like, how do you know when to try to snipe this pass? Well, you recognize the pattern, right? The ball went here and it usually goes there after, and I'm in a position to get there and intercept that pass. Or player on the wing is staring into the post, right? And the post is posting up hard. So I'm going to go after that pass because as soon as it leaves his hands, because I think I can get it.
Yeah, and as a player too, like you have to follow the team rules. Like that is like you need to be trustworthy in that fact. If coach says do X, you do X. If coach says do Y, you do Y. But like then at some point in time, there's going to be a situation where one of your teammates falls down or something happens. They run a play you've never seen before. And you just gotta trust your gut and go for it. But if you take this information as sort of like free reign to do whatever I want, what the coach is going to learn is he can't trust you. So it's like you need to, as a player, it is your responsibility to know and understand the team rules to be able to find the gray areas within them to where you can cheat or where you can gamble or where you can take some more risks.
Yeah. So if you're a coach listening, here's what I would encourage you to do is allow your players to have some freedom, allow your players to play instinctual and anticipate some plays. And like we talked about with rebounding, you can always dial it back. But I would rather have a team that is ultra aggressive. Like Mike said, he'd rather a team full of players that are cutting than doing nothing. So, like, let's get your players playing really aggressive next season, and then you can always dial it back. But I would encourage coaches take the result after it. So, out of it. So, if Mike goes for a steal and gets it, I can't clap. And if he goes for a steal and doesn't get it, I can't get on him. In fact, I spent a couple days with a Division I program, and something happened at practice that it was just a really cool moment. They were pressing. They were playing in the full court, and a player, you could see he was deciding, do I go trap this or do I retreat? And the head coach stopped it and just said, dude, that is like right on the line. Like, if you would have gone, I'm cool with it. If you would have not gone, I'm cool with it. You just got to make your decision and go with it. And that was just like really cool to hear because I feel a lot of coaches just result. It's like if the result was good, then like, okay, good decision. If the result was bad, bad decision. So I'd encourage you just like, you can't script every moment. The whole point of the gray areas is to equip your players to make those decisions, but also support them in their decisions. I would rather support an aggressive turnover, an aggressive mistake, than to have a team that like, hey, we're playing this game and we don't know if we're going to play hard. Our effort's so inconsistent. So yeah, if you're a coach, like let's just if I could challenge you on one thing for next season, just err on the side of aggressiveness. See if your team can just level up their aggressiveness next season. I guarantee it'll win you one or two more games.
And to build on that too, I like I said, like I was more of a conservative defensive player, but I would always encourage my guards. It's like I have such good positioning. I will always be in the right spot. I will always know what everything that is going on. It's like go be aggressive. If you get burned, if you like I got you. So even as a player to kind of give those guys that freedom and let them know that we're better if you take risks. We screw up the offense more by you being super aggressive. And the cost of you missing the steal or being out of position, like I'm there. Like I'll cover up as best I can. And the effort coming back is going to be great anyway, because the effort, like, to put yourself in that position was, it's not like you're just going to quit and just like not keep playing basketball. So yeah, that reminded me of that too, to like encourage guys to go be aggressive. And like since I I couldn't, I was like, other guys go. I'll just stand back here.
Okay. Well, if you're interested in anything that we talked about as far as offensive rebound systems, transition defense, defensive principles, spacing principles on the perimeter, check us out at savvycoach.com. If you like the pod, make sure to share it, subscribe. It means a lot. It's free, but it really, really helps us. Appreciate you listening, especially if you're a weekly listener. And as always, stay savvy.
Stay savvy.